Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today we've got Giovanni Briggs from Airtable. How you doing, Giovanni?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing great. As we were getting prepped here, I tried to knock over everything on my desk, and so I'm feeling very fortunate that I didn't actually do that. So today we are going to be talking about Airtable, right?
Yes, I hope so. I hope that's why you have me here.
Surprise! It's going to be math. Um, all right. So what I am really excited about. So I this is one of the rare cases where I've actually used the thing that we're about to talk about. So on my personal site, I have this speaking page, and I think that's the right URL. Yeah. And down here, I have this whole setup of like my talks and all this stuff. And this is all pulled from Airtable. So I
Right.
really love this as a like feature. It's such a cool, powerful tool for that. And today, what I was hoping we could do is just walk through the process of doing that. And so what I'm going to do is actually sign up for a brand new Airtable account
Okay.
to step through that process, and I'm hoping that that's not going to trip me up in any way. But let's give it a shot. And while I'm doing that, do you want to talk for a minute about what Airtable is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Airtable is a web-based application with the goal of allowing anyone to construct robust, collaborative software applications that are optimized for their unique workflows and processes. And so, what that looks like to a lot of people when they first jump in is Excel on rocket boosters. So it's got a lot of the familiarity that you see within an Excel spreadsheet, but with some additional functionality that makes it more akin to a relational database. And so when you look at a lot of web apps, whether they're full-fledged SaaS applications or internal tools or a personal project like your personal website, you can really break those down into three layers, right? So you have your data layer, um, where you define the different objects that make up that application, the relationships between them, your application layer that allows you to create, read, update, or delete items out of that data layer, and then your presentation layer, which lets you which allows end users to then interact with that data. And so Airtable allows you to customize and configure all three aspects of that application, again, which allows you to really optimize your workflows and processes. So rather than using an application where you have to pigeonhole what you do into the confines of that application, you get to build your own. Excited to hop in and show sort of a lightweight example of what that can look like, and how you can use our API and Gatsby to then build new presentation layers on top of Airtable.
Awesome. So that timing could not have been better because right as you were wrapping up, I finished signing up. So we're ready to rock and roll here.
It's like I timed it or something.
Yeah. I guess the cat's out of the bag. We do practice runs of this whole thing. I'm kidding. This is complete chaos.
Yeah.
So so what were we going to build? What do you think is a good example to build for kind of showing off what Airtable and Gatsby can do?
Yeah. So one project that I have always wanted to do, but have never quite had the time to do, is build my own personal portfolio website. Right. So where you list out, my work experience, my education, different projects that I'm working on, open source projects that I've contributed to, my Stack Overflow profile. Having that all in one place.
Mm.
I have LinkedIn for that today, but I don't necessarily always like the way LinkedIn presents that information. So having my own personal space in the web is something that I think a lot of people like to build and have. And I think it would be it's a cool way, I think, to merge Airtable and Gatsby.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how should we do that? What's the process? Like I noticed when I hit add a base, we've got some options here.
Yeah. So within Airtable, right? So right now you're looking at your workspace, and a workspace is a collection of bases. And we call them a base because they're, again, akin to a database. So when you first sign up for Airtable, we pre-fill it with some template bases of common use cases that we see people use Airtable for,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's product planning, project tracking, a sales CRM. Airtable, our own CRM, is actually all built in Airtable. So there's a lot of different use cases that you can leverage Airtable for. And so we just sort
Okay.
of pre-populate with some of the more common ones. But we can go ahead and just start from scratch.
All
There are a
right.
plethora of templates out there that you could use. But yeah, let's go ahead and start from scratch. I think it's more fun.
Yeah, let's do it. Ooh, and we can choose all these fun things. Okay, so let's make it purple because it's Gatsby.
Right.
And then it's a portfolio, so we're going to choose this one. Yeah, that seems right.
Excellent.
Okay, we did it. So now we have our portfolio base. Okay.
Right.
And I don't need a guide because I have one. Um, all right. So what should we do?
Yeah. So now that you're in Airtable, again, what you see when you first start is very akin to a spreadsheet. We've got some rows, we have some columns. Um, when you're thinking about designing something within Airtable, you should really think about it similar to how you would build a SQL database. What are the objects that I want to store? What are the
Let's
relationships between those objects?
let's hypothetically say I've never designed a SQL database.
Yeah,
What how should we think about that? So objects we want to store.
right. The attributes that those objects have, and
Okay.
then the relationships between them.
Okay.
So when we think about what makes up a resume, right? A resume has items, right? It just has line items. So I think for our table, we can go ahead and rename it.
Okay.
Let's just call it items.
Items.
We can
Now,
always
are
change
we
this later.
when we say resume, like
Mm,
this is actually a good question. What type of portfolio are we building? Are these is this like a job portfolio, like this is where I've worked? Or is this going to be a collection of projects? Is it going to be a collection of jobs and the projects I did for that? How much time do we have?
right. So I think when I was thinking about this, um, I think it can be all of those,
Okay.
and then we can sort of grow and expand in different directions, right? Because even if it's projects that I've worked on and places I've worked, they share a certain amount of attributes, right?
Okay.
They have a title, they have a time frame that you were working on them,
Okay.
you had a certain role there, there was a platform that you were working on. So I think that you know all of those items share a common set of attributes that we can begin working with first, and then
Okay.
we can sort of look at how to build relationships if we need to grow and expand that.
Okay. So we'll call it items to start.
Yeah.
And I assume we probably want to keep a name.
Yep.
Um, but we need to add more things. So how does the portfolio work in your mind?
Yeah. So I think each item has a name or a title. It then has a start and an end date. So we can have a start date. I mean, yeah, if you click on that, Airtable's got preloaded a ton of different field types that you can pick from. So we probably want a date for this one.
Do we
Uh,
want to Oh, duration is time in minutes or seconds. Cool.
right. Um, I think date was
Cool.
up towards the
Yeah,
should be up towards
I was
the top.
actually just like scrolling to see what was in
Oh, were
there.
you? Yeah.
Okay,
So we constantly try and add new field types as we get feedback from people. But date has been one that has been around for quite some time.
cool. And then we can choose a date format. We're going to use ISO because we're nerds.
Right.
And I'm going to assume we don't need time, so I'm going to save without it. Does that feel right to you?
Yeah, unless you know the exact time
I
at which
feel
you
like
started a project.
I
But
feel like that's not super important.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
all right, I'm going to create an end date, and while we're doing that, there is a question from Smashbox. Can we populate these records in Airtable from an external data source?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when we first created the base, there was an option there to import from a spreadsheet. So if you have an existing Excel spreadsheet or CSV file, you can create a base directly off of that. What we'll see in a little bit is Airtable also offers a public API. And so using that API, you can create, read, update, and delete records in an Airtable base. So that's another common way that we see people, pull data out of an existing data source and upload it into Airtable.
Cool. Um, let's see. So we can. Um, I lost my train of thought. Where are we at? Okay, we've got a name.
Yeah.
We've got a start date. We've got an end date.
I,
What else should we? What else should we track?
I think you normally have a title, right, or a role. So
Role.
from an educational standpoint, your role was student, bachelor's or master's at a job. It's whatever your title is. So I think that can just be freeform
Freeform
text.
text.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think that there are categories, right? We've kind of talked about some of them: jobs, education, project. And so that we probably want to use a single select, which is basically an enum, right? So you define all of the different options that you want to allow in that field. And then you can select those options as you create new records. And we add fancy colors to it to make it easier to discern, what group something belongs into.
Okay. And so what did we say? We said oh no, this is categories. So we can probably just do we need to define these now, or should we make these up as we go along?
I think we can make them up as we go along. That's going to be another nice part to this is once we sort of define the high level schema, we can go in and quickly add new features or new values as necessary.
Okay. Anything else?
I would add platform, right? So is this a project that's on GitHub? You could also think of the platform as, the educational institution that you went to, the company that you worked for. And that one, I would probably also do that one as a single select because you're probably going to want to reuse platforms. If I'm thinking about you, Jason, the number of GitHub projects that you have and may want to show is there are likely multiple of them. And so you want to be able to reuse that value.
Gotcha.
You could do it as single text, right? But then if you fat finger something, GitHub with a capital H becomes different than GitHub with a lowercase h. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And so this again is going to be an area where Airtable is going to be different than a spreadsheet. Is you do get to sort of you get to start enforcing some of those data validation rules by using things like single select.
Nice. And yeah, and because I've definitely tried that in Excel, and while it is possible, it has not always been. Well, it relies on me being good at my job, which I think is usually not the right thing when I'm in Excel. So.
Yeah, and for most developers, relying on them to be consistent, I find, is a big ask.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. We said this is going to be your portfolio. So do you want to give me either some made up or actual items to add into this thing?
Yeah, sure. So we can. I was we can start with my Airtable job.
Okay.
So I'm a sales engineer.
And let's see.
Ooh, I started November 15th, 2018.
November 15th.
I don't know why I started on a Thursday, but I did.
And I guess we'll leave it blank because it's ongoing.
There's no end date. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. So I did the wrong thing.
No, you're fine.
Airtable, and the role is sales engineer.
Sales engineer.
Okay.
When you say if the category is it's a job, right? So we can go ahead and add. We don't have any categories in there now. So as you type into the field, right, we've now added that as a new enum that we can pre-populate at a later point in time.
Yeah, and so now it's actually here, which is really nice.
Right. And then if you click on categories, and do customize field type.
It looked like I broke it. I added like a blank one somehow. Or did I do that?
No, so it'll always give you the option to add new options. Ooh. Which was an odd sentence, but yeah, and then you can change the colors so that it fits whatever color scheme you like best.
Okay, so we've got it green.
Right.
I'm gonna save.
Go ahead and save.
Now we've got a green job. And what's the platform?
Let's do Airtable again.
Okay.
I think this will make sense in a minute, but yes. So that
all right. I'm glad that you got a plan. Are we going to use
Got
notes
a
and
skeleton outline.
attachments, or should I delete these?
So I think for notes, you can give, if you think about, when you're adding items onto your portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
you want to give a little bit of a description.
Sure.
So we can leave it blank for now because I don't necessarily want to bore you with my long job description.
There.
Nice.
That way we've got something.
Right.
And then attachments, probably not.
Uh, Probably not unless you want to add an image for that item, but I don't think we necessarily have to. Or you can grab our logo. That
Yeah,
works too.
why not? Let's show how it works. I feel like this is
Yeah,
pretty
let's do it.
cool. All
Yeah.
right, I'm gonna save the Airtable logo, and we'll put it in downloads, and we can drop it in here. And this is something that I really enjoyed about Airtable in general, is like the how easy it was to stick an image in there versus like when you're in Excel, you're doing like URL references or something.
Right.
So just being able to drag and drop is really nice. All right,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say those images are also accessible in the API. So as we start using the API, we're querying these records. You can get a link to that attachment and use it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so where am I going here? I want this one. And what's next?
I worked at WePay prior to Airtable.
Like that, or is it like one word?
One word, camel case.
Camel case.
There you go.
I guessed right.
Yeah. And that will also eventually be a job description. Oh, nice copy and paste. I started there in June of 2016. Yeah. So, and if you just keep typing in the date, it'll figure out what you mean. Yeah. Just say
Nice.
June 1st. I don't remember the exact day.
Cool.
Close enough for government work.
Yeah.
And I stopped working at the end of October of 2018.
October is 10.
Yeah, 10/31. And I was also a sales engineer there as well.
Okay, and that was a job.
It was. And we can say the platform was WePay.
Okay.
And then we can add.
Let's add a logo.
Oh yeah, you want to add a logo? Go for it.
Oops.
It's going to be that.
This one.
That. Oh no, you got to get a Chase company. We were
This one.
acquired, so.
Aha.
I do want to pay my respects. Yeah, and you can add multiple attachments to each record as well. It's oftentimes that people just have a one attachment per record, but sometimes if you have, if you're managing a project and that project has a collection of documents associated with it, you can upload multiple attachments to it.
Okay. And so do you think this is maybe good enough?
Yeah, I think we can start here. We can add more projects and things in as we go along.
Okay. So now we have records. Do we need to do things? Are we gonna create relationships? Are there other?
I think we can start with a nice flat table for now.
Okay.
Relationships. One nice thing is when we get into sort of the Gatsby side of it with the GraphQL, managing those relationships becomes really easy. But it does take a little setup and work. So I think we can start from here.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I do want to call out, if you go up to the help in the top right and click on API documentation.
Okay.
So Airtable dynamically creates an API for every base. So this API is going to be unique to your base schema. So as you change fields, as you add fields, remove fields, add tables, modify relationships, that is all immediately reflected in the API. And so it really is building that for a lot of people. If you set up a traditional SQL database, one of the first things you end up having to do is figure out, how do I create, read, update, and delete records out of that
Mm-hmm.
SQL database. And so we've taken that boilerplate for you and
Cool.
generate that API. So those fields have different types associated with them that have different rules. So your single selects are going to look different than a single line text, and that's all enforced at the API. So this, I think, is one of the coolest parts of Airtable, especially for our more developer inclined users. We're really, again, creating that boilerplate API for you so that
Mm-hmm.
you can just start extending it, building things on top of it without having to worry about that underlying API.
Yeah, very cool. And it's got all the setup. So like if we wanted to create a record, we can just go through and do, just use the Airtable library and
Right.
follow these steps. That's pretty slick. That's really nice.
Yeah. And the documentation will modify dynamically as well. Sometimes you have to refresh the page, but
Mm-hmm.
again, as you make changes into that base, everything in this documentation will update as well.
Yeah, I'm digging it. So, all right, from here we can
Yes.
go a handful of directions. Like on the one hand, we can just go to um, straight to Gatsby and we can start putting something on the page. On the other hand, we could go deeper into what Airtable's capable of because, I know we haven't touched even a fraction of what is actually possible with the tool.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the best like next step for us?
I think we can go into Gatsby.
Okay.
Let's hop on in. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So let me get to. Wait, where am I?
I
I think
I don't know.
I.
That would be your machine. I can't help you with this one.
Okay, so we have an empty folder here. So let's go ahead and we'll do Gatsby new, and we will just put it right here. And I'm going to use the Hello World starter.
Yeah. It's my favorite one to start with.
Yeah, I've also just been having trouble with Sharp lately because I upgraded to Node 12, and upon
Mm.
doing that, have just opened up a handful of problems that I like. They're easy enough to deal with, but nobody wants to watch me struggle through it.
That's that's fair. My own developer environment is a mess, so I'm glad that you're responsible for this part.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So we now have a site here, and I believe when I head over to my editor, I have our Hello World site is now in place, right? So we've
Right.
got, nothing is configured here. We're sitting on a blank Gatsby install. We've got Gatsby React and React DOM, and that's it. So from here, we need to do a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the Airtable source.
Right.
Um, let's see here. Something odd is happening in the chat, and I don't know what it is, but hey, whatever. Uh, oh, we're being rated. I've never actually seen that happen before.
No, I'm
Cool. All right,
neither have I.
welcome to everyone coming over. That's super fun. All right, cool. So we've got Gatsby source Airtable, and in this, we're going to effectively set it up. We need our API key, and so this API key I'll have to like grab off screen and set up as an environment variable, and then we set up our tables,
Yep.
and we're not going to get into any of the advanced stuff just yet, right? We're basically doing this very simple approach.
Yeah, we can just start with one table and then look at how to add
Okay,
relationships later. Yeah.
cool. So let's just go ahead and do this step here. Um, we're going to add Gatsby source Airtable. And once we get that, I can head over in here. And in the config, we're going to set it up to use plugins.
Yep.
And the plugin that I want to use is going to be Gatsby source Airtable. And for the options, we want to use, go back to the docs. I need an API key.
Yep.
And that's going to be Airtable API key. Haven't set that up yet, but I will. And then for the tables, I need a base ID and the table name. And that's it. The view we can leave out. All right.
The view we can leave out. We can talk about views. We can talk about views later.
And so this is my base ID, right?
Yes, it's also in the URL of the documentation. Whichever way you want to pull it, there's a couple different places to grab
URL of the documentation.
Yeah, so where you see airtable.com. Yep, that one too.
Okay.
That's normally how I get to it.
Okay. So I can drop my base ID, and then my table is called Gatsby Portfolio or Items?
The table is called Items.
Items. Got it.
Yeah. And I believe the Gatsby source plugin does care about capitalization. So
okay.
We are case sensitive.
Okay. So then I need to create a .env. Actually, I'm just going to do a .env. Wait, yeah, that's what I want. So I'm going to do a .env, and I'm going to also install .env. And this is going to be Airtable API key. And that value needs to be there. So for now, we're not going to have that. And then up here, I'm going to require .env. And then we just call config with no options, and that's going to pull in this .env file.
Right.
So let me take this off screen. What did I just do? I did nothing is what I did. Let me take that off screen, and let me take this off screen for just a second. And I'm going to grab my API key, which I will find. Oh, no.
Under your account.
Okay.
So if you there should be a little
let me come
avatar
back
on the
then
top
for
right.
a second. So I have my avatar here. I'm going to account. All right. And I can generate an API key. So I'm going to click that button, but I'm going to pull off screen first so that I don't, every time that I do these things, I end up getting myself into trouble where somebody very helpfully will show me why security is important.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Especially with the raid party here. I don't
yeah, everybody's favorite. Okay, so we've got I have the .env is now saved with that API key in it. We have our everything is set up. So if this works the way that we want it to work, what should happen here is when I do a yarn develop, it should tell us that it's pulling Airtable fields. Let's see. It didn't like it. Cannot find module Gatsby source file system. Is that a requirement?
It might be a requirement on the Airtable. I think I ran into this error a long time ago when I was first setting it up.
Specifying a file node does... Oh, if you are using the attachment type, you need to include Gatsby source file system. Otherwise, it will fall back to a non-mapped field. Does that mean that it worked or that it... No. Okay. So we should fix that documentation because it just straight up doesn't work. All right. So let's add Gatsby source file system. And what do I do?
I think it should... I bet if we looked at the source plugin, it's just requiring it in the Gatsby node.
Okay, so I don't have to actually, let's see. All right, I guess let's just try it. Yarn develop. Okay. Oh, all right. So here's the part that we were looking for. It fetched all the Airtable rows.
Sweet.
So that's all two of them. And now if I grab this URL and open up a table here, then what I should be able... Ooh, look at that. We've got some fancy new Gatsby features, everyone. So this is the Graphical Explorer. And this is a really cool thing that the OneGraph team has been working on. that shows you your whole like GraphQL setup. And so instead of having to build these queries by hand, we can just click buttons. And this is really, really cool. So I'm just going to click buttons to get the stuff that I want. I've got my table, and then what else? What else do I need? I want my data.
Probably in data, and
Let's
then
get the name.
there are all of our fields.
Okay.
Nice.
So this is super cool because we have, wait, why aren't you opening? There we go. So yeah, it just pulls in our items and it gives us Airtable, and it's a little weird that it is. Oh, I get it. So it pulls from Airtable and then gets the table data. It's a little confusing that it's, shouldn't it? Maybe I'm just overthinking this. But yeah, so it's pulling in the table, and then I get it. So if we were going to do like multiple tables, we would just add a filter to get just the table that we wanted. So we would come up here and we can type filter, and then we want the table to equal items. Oh my God, I love this Explorer. How nice is that? So instead of having to remember how to type out this query, right? We just check those boxes. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Then when I come back over here, we can see we still get the same result, but now if we had multiple tables, we would only be getting that result, which is pretty slick. All right, so let me close that so that we can actually see what's going on. But really nice work by the team at OneGraph, and Sean Grove over there has been really, really helpful in making that happen. So thanks to them. All right, so we've got data. At this point, we can do something like, let's grab this, and we'll go to our index page, and I'm going to import GraphQL from Gatsby, and we're going to export a const called query, and that is going to use this GraphQL thing, and I'm just going to paste in the query that we wrote in the Explorer, and that'll give us what we need. Okay, so Airtable nodes data name. Once this executes, it's going to give us a new prop on the component called data, and we can use that however we want. So let's do something like this. We'll create a div. In that div, we can say, what is this right now? It's like my resume.
Yeah,
and we'll do an unordered list, and we can say data dot all airtable dot nodes dot map, and this would be a node. And then in here, we can put in a list item with a key. Let's add. Is there an ID in here?
Yeah, there will be a record ID or an ID, either one. The record ID actually comes from the Airtable API.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that one might be. It'll be unique for each record.
Record ID, and that's going to be node dot record ID, and then we can do, I guess, just like the name. So node dot data dot name, capital name.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at what happened. So if I go to localhost 8000, hey.
Woohoo!
All right, and so if we want to flesh that out just a little bit more, we can go back in here and let's open up the Explorer again. And in addition to the name, we also want the role. And I think that's probably enough for now. So let's verify that that's what we need. Role, good. Okay, so I'm just going to add that role. And then down here, we can do something like node.data.role at that. Go back out here, and now we've got it. So this is cool. Like this is pretty slick. We've got a lot of data coming in very quickly. You know, we were able to, let's see, we are 35 minutes into the stream, and even with all the chatter, we're still able to very quickly get something up and running.
Right.
I mean, granted, we have a long ways to go in terms of making this look nice, but getting the data in took very, very little effort. So that being said, what's next? What else can we do here?
Yeah. So if we want to go back into Airtable,
Okay.
right? So there's a couple of things we could do. We could add more rows, and then watch Gatsby pull those in and update them. Um, the other thing we can do is just play around even within Airtable a little bit, and
Let's
experiment
do
with.
that because I feel like
Okay.
I spend a lot of time putting data on the screen in Gatsby, and while that's very cool, I think this is like a powerful tool. So it'd be interesting to see what else we can do, and then let's come back to Gatsby at the end and show how we can use that. So I'd love to see like how do we create relationships between tables? How do we, if I want to say like I don't know, let's think of something that we can do. If we wanted
Yeah.
to do maybe we split this out and we make records for companies, right? And
You
then
read
we
my
can
mind. I
link.
know. I'm
Okay,
right there with
perfect.
you.
All right,
Yeah.
let's
So
do it.
because and that's where I was setting this up for.
Okay,
Oftentimes
cool.
when you have people who do single selects, right? They're meant to represent different objects, but
Mm,
they don't necessarily have enough attributes on them to create a new table. As soon as you look at those single selects and say, I really want this platform or company to have additional attributes associated with it, like a
mm,
name or a description or a location, that's going to be a prime opportunity to create a new table and start managing that relationship. Because right now, for example, say I had multiple roles at Airtable, I would
mm-hmm,
have two different Airtable records, and I
mm-hmm.
would have to copy the logo into each. And
Right.
since companies like to change their logos so frequently, if Airtable were to change its logo, I would have to go and modify that in both places.
Mm-hmm.
What we can do instead is have, like you said, a companies table.
Okay, so let me create a new table,
Yep.
and I'm going to call it companies. And while I'm setting this up, there's a question.
Yeah.
Are we able to do markdown in a field?
So the short answer is yes. The long answer is a little more nuanced. The Within the long text field, you can go ahead and write markdown. We won't necessarily format it as markdown, but you could feel free to write as if it were markdown, and then via the API, you would just pull that out as a raw string, and then you could use Gatsby's formatters to then render that markdown.
Mm.
We also have a rich text field in Airtable that allows for some of that more specific formatting like you would see in Markdown. But the way that the API returns it does not look like Markdown. So the answer is a little bit of yes and no on that one.
So when you say rich text, where is that?
Oh, so
Is it?
rich text is a I spoke too soon. It is a feature we currently have in beta, but that's the long term goal of it. Sorry, I have all of the betas enabled on my account, so what is and isn't in beta. That line gets blurry for me on a day-to-day basis.
Not gonna lie, that's a weird flex.
Yeah.
Uh,
Welcome to my life.
okay, so I have created Airtable and WePay, and
Yeah.
now I've got their logos attached. So let's refactor this table and fix it. So
Yeah.
how would we go about doing such a thing?
So this is going to be super easy. So if you
Okay.
scroll over to where we had platform,
Mm-hmm.
let's go ahead and we're going to change this field type. So customize the field type.
Okay.
Instead of a single select, we want it to be a link to another record.
Okay.
And we want to link to the company's table.
Okay.
So here, again, when you talk about a relational database, right, you can have one-to-one relationships or one-to-many relationships or many-to-many relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you create these links between tables, we let you configure which type of a relationship you want to
Okay.
have. So for this one, I think we want it to be one to many. So
One is like you could have wait.
so
One
each item can
Uh-huh.
only be associated with one platform, but a platform or a company, but I could work multiple items at one company.
Right, but hold on. So let me think through this because the way that I'm
Okay.
reading this is that with this particular field, we only
Hmm.
want to allow linking to a single company.
Correct.
And so if I uncheck this box, that's what my brain tells me would make that happen.
You are right. I may have
Okay.
described that poorly. Your
Okay.
intuition is
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do that and then I'm going to rename this to company so that my brain can process what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Convert.
Convert.
Wait, did it just find those?
It did. So
Oh
when you
shit.
convert linked records, when you convert between any field types, Airtable tries to be as helpful as it possibly can be in inferring what you are attempting to do. And
Awesome.
so we saw those single selects. You had already pre-populated the company's table with Airtable and WePay, so it went ahead and created those links. Even if you
Okay.
hadn't created those links or those items in the company's table, when you did
Mhm.
that conversion, it would have automatically created those records for you.
Cool. Okay. And so
Yeah,
now we can also get rid of this because
you
that's now
can.
part of the company field.
Right.
So we have the company is linked. And then I think what'll happen over here is if I look at this, it shows that it's working, right?
Right.
And so here's another thing that I thought might be kind of interesting. What if we refactor this to be you and me?
Okay.
Because then we can show kind of how the many to many would work. So
Yep.
I'm gonna change this over. Um, Briggs, not Riggs,
That's okay. It happens.
and this is also you. And we should probably, as like a, if we want to go to hard mode, we can create a third table for this. Um,
Yeah. Or you can make it again. It might be a good single select option where you associate who the owner of that item is, and then you could use formulas within Airtable, then take multiple components and make a unique item out of them.
okay. All right. So I'm adding a new record for Gatsby.
Nice.
And this is cool because it means it just created it for me automatically. And I
Right.
don't know why it created extra records, but we can.
When you first create a table, we always pre-fill it with 3 blank rows.
Gotcha.
So that blank row is in there.
Okay. So I've got this. I'm going to save image as and in downloads. Good. Come back over here and we will add this logo. Okay. And then I'm also going to be, let's copy this. And I will say, let's see, I started using Airtable in like 2018 around, we'll say October ish. So we'll just pick a day. And I will say that I am an enthusiast. And we'll just say this is
It could be a hobby.
call it a state of mind.
Ah,
Um,
I'm about it.
all right. So now we have Airtable is being used at both.
Right.
And if I look at this, it shows here that like my person record is now linked to this Airtable record, which is pretty slick.
Right.
Um, so if I go back over to the API and refresh the page, it now shows us the companies table,
Right.
which is really cool. Um,
Yeah, you'll also see now that our items table has changed and the fields that are available to it have also
yes.
changed.
So we've got all of the things, names, notes, start date, role, categories, and then company down here.
Yep.
And so this is kind of an interesting one. So the company,
Mm,
it shows record IDs.
right.
And so that's all well and good, but if I stop and start my server, it's going to put us in a little bit of a dilemma because when I get in here and I say I want my company, I got to refresh the page. My company, it gives me this, and that's not super useful. Um,
Right.
so what I would like to do is make that more like how do I fix this? How do I get it to actually give me the company name?
Yeah, so that's going to be back in the Gatsby source, Airtable source plugin.
Okay.
Um, and so if we look again um, at the documentation, right? The tables is a list for a reason because you can have multiple tables.
Okay.
And the source plugin will also let you define the relationships between those tables. So that is the tables link.
Table links.
Yep.
Okay. And
And
I do that by what now?
yeah, so if we go back to the Gatsby config file,
Okay.
we're going to add a table links. And it's going to be an array. And you named so this is going to be the field in the items table that links to another table. And I think you called it company.
This one. And so I just write company.
Yep. And then we also need to tell the plugin where the definition for company as well. And so that's going to be, I think we called it companies.
And this one doesn't
And
have
then
table links, right? Or I guess it does.
it does. So you can choose to define that if you want to, and have it be a bidirectional link, or
Why
you can
not?
just define it once.
Let's actually let's do it without so that we can see.
Okay.
And then all right. So we've got that set up. And while this is running, it looks like we got a couple more questions coming in. So, would you recommend to use Gatsby and Airtable to create a simple e-commerce application? I get that managing a product portfolio is a great use case, but what if you want to connect it to handle orders and sync stock levels and similar things?
Yeah, I think you could. Like, I don't think there's anything preventing you, but it does kind of bleed into the next question about the API rate limits. If you're running an e-commerce store and you're expecting to have hundreds of connections and orders coming through, and each of those is going to require a API call to Airtable's backend, you're likely going to run into our API rate limits. And so for that reason, it may not be a great fit for that. What you
Okay.
could use Airtable for in conjunction with your e-commerce site is managing and tracking those orders over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have you have another system that your e-commerce is dumping into that manages that performance to make sure that your site's always working. You then use our API to pipe that data into Airtable and then manage that workflow within Airtable. So be able to change the status of an order to sent, canceled, refunded, and be able to track and manage that all within Airtable is definitely something that you could do. But Airtable isn't trying to necessarily be a full replacement for some of the SQL databases that are already out there.
Okay. And then a follow-up question there that you actually touched on for a minute is around the API request limits. So the docs state 5 requests per second and 30 seconds before subsequent requests if you exceed that. And then the specific question is, are those requests fields, records, bases, something else?
Yeah, so it's at the base level. So if I have one database, I can make 5 requests per second to it.
Okay. And so if I have 2, I can make 5 to each?
5 to each.
Okay. And if I do a get all records, that it doesn't matter how many records there are, it's the one request.
Yeah, and the get all records, we paginate, so we return pages of 100 records at a time.
Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at the updated set here. And I'm getting an error. Let's open the Explorer. The company requires...
Is now, yep.
Cool. So now we've got an actual link. So we can do
Right.
something like this. And that gives us our company name. So we can now look and, hey, look at that company name. So this is really cool. And there's a follow-up question. I think you already touched on this. Does Airtable provide tools for formatting rich text? And the answer was soon.
Soon.
Yeah,
Soon
once,
on an undefined timeline, but yes, it is
yeah,
something we're working on, and common feedback that we've received, and so it is something the team is working on.
cool, very cool. All right, so let's play with this for a minute and get it into the actual code that we wrote. So if I want to get my company, I can just
Mm-hmm.
come over here, grab this, and now we have a slightly different setup because it's now showing both of our info. So I guess maybe we want to sort this too and make sure that we're getting the right info. So I'm going to sort, and I want to sort by whoa,
You probably want to sort by the
name,
data
right?
name. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to sort by name, and I don't particularly care about the order, but that's what we want. So that's going to give
Hey,
us
I came up
your
first. That's all
stuff.
that matters.
All right, your stuff and then my stuff. And so what we can do is we can just grab this out. Okay. And so that just adds the sort. So that way we're going to make sure that it groups our stuff. And now it's our resumes. And we can say, we gotta fix this. So it's going to be worked as a, or I guess because it's not always going to be a job. And then it's going to be node.data.company.data.name. All right, this is a little messy. I think we would probably end up cleaning this up if this was going to be the full app. But for, oh no, cannot read property name of undefined.
Undefined.
I might need to stop and start again. Or it might be that I just did something silly. Let's take a look. Enthusiast Airtable company data name.
Oh,
Did I typo?
so no.
Add data
So
company
linked
data.
records are always going to be an array. So even if you have a one-to-one
Oh,
relationship,
got it.
so we can cheat, and it will be company at the
So
zero
so
index.
gross. Oh God. Okay. Please don't
Just
ever do
don't
this.
think about it too hard. Just
Yeah.
don't.
Okay. All right. These are the terrible things that we're doing. All right. So, and there we go. So now we've got names. It's still linked across, and if we
Yep.
want to, actually, let's look at the company image stuff because that was a
Oh
pretty
yeah.
cool setup. So let's look at the company and the logo, and the logo is going to give us a URL.
URL.
And so this is not optimized, like we're not installing Sharp or any of the Gatsby image optimization stuff. We're just straight up pulling in the unoptimized logo, which means that this is not going to be the most like performant way of solving this problem,
Right.
but it will be very convenient for the purposes of kind of just showing off what's possible here. Um, so then I can do an inline image, and we'll do image source equals.
And images again are going to be an array.
Oh God, this is going to get so bad. Um, company zero data dot logo zero. Oh, it feels so bad. And then we're gonna go with the URL, and the alt is going to be. Oh, I hate it. I hate so much of what we're doing right now. Um, yeah. All right, that's atrocious. So we'll set a quick style tag and say, the width is going to be 50 pixels,
Right.
something manageable, and that's got to be a string.
String.
Okay. All right.
Oh, look at that.
I absolutely hate this code. This is the grossest thing that I've written in a long time. In an ideal scenario, we would have a way to kind of loop through that because theoretically, there's a possibility that we could be showing multiple companies, that we could be showing, like, if we were to clean this up and say group all of the sales engineers, like Geo is a sales
Right.
engineer. We pay then at Airtables, that kind of thing. Then we would be looping through, but we don't really have clearly defined goals for this. We're just shooting from the hip here. So,
Yeah, and
um,
and the other way you could do it too is if you want to break it down by these are the companies that I worked for, that may be a better way of structuring that query of issuing the query to the companies table and then having a list of jobs that were associated with that
yeah.
company. Whereas we're doing the inverse, where we
Excuse me.
started with the items and then pulled in um, the the company info.
Right. And if we were to switch this up, like we could bounce out of here, and instead of getting, let's see, we could go with, what would we get? We would get how would we do this? We would limit it to companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we limit to companies, we could get the name, and that would give us just the companies, and then we could get like the
I think it was the items.
items. Wait, is that right?
We
Oh, but
haven't we haven't designed the link in the Gatsby config yet.
that's right. We didn't set this up. So if we add this items link and stop and restart, then we'll be able to see these links. So let's get. So we'll just demo this. We're not going to actually change the code. So we've got the items. Now that we've got the items, we would pull out the data and the name, and that would give us. Now we've got kind of a
Right, because
reverse lookup. So at Airtable, both Geo and I have been there. But yeah, so that's kind of you can set up all the relationships. Gatsby makes it the source plugin makes it easy to get the references going bidirectionally. Airtable makes it easy to track that data in the first place.
yep.
Anything else you wanna look at there? Or can I start peppering you with questions?
Um, you can start peppering me with questions. I'm
Okay.
curious what questions you have.
Well, I have many because there are all
Okay.
these buttons that we haven't clicked. Like, what are these? And
Yeah.
what are these? And
Yeah. So I can give the grand spiel.
okay.
Uh, and so earlier I was talking about, when you can decompose an application, right? The presentation layer is how you manage how your end users interact with your data.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go back to the views, so where it says grid view and there's that little down triangle next to it, so you can add additional views on top of your data. So right now we're using the grid view, which renders
Mm-hmm.
it in columns and rows, depending on what you want to do. So if you're like an order tracking system where state is something that's extremely important to you, you may want to render as a Kanban board and be able to see all of the orders that are in the different states. And that may be beneficial to how you want to run that process.
Is there
You
one
can
of
also,
these? Is
oh
that like
yeah,
is this set up to show this?
yeah. So you can go ahead and do project tracking. So we've pre-filled a project tracker for you, and you can see that there are a ton of. If you go back to the design projects one,
Got it.
and go up to all projects, there's a there's several different views that allow you to look at the data. And so this one makes heavy use of our calendar view because we're tracking dates and time frames. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's all of the same underlying record data. It's
Mm-hmm.
now just visualizing it in a calendar rather than rows on a spreadsheet.
Ooh, due dates only. That's nice.
Right. And the
Um.
other nice thing about views is you can think of them similar to what a database view would be, right? So you can say,
Right.
I only want to see X number of fields, or I only want to see fields within this date range or grouped in a certain way. And so Airtable is meant to be inherently collaborative. So you can invite a ton of different users into your base, right? Like as a project tracker, you
Mm-hmm.
probably aren't doing this all on your own. And then each user can create a view specific to them. So um, for example, internally, we have a project tracker and people get assigned tasks. So I have a view
Right.
in there that's just tasks assigned to me. And because I don't necessarily care what everyone else is working on, I really just want to know what I am immediately responsible for. And so I can create
Sure.
a view that limits to just that data.
Cool. And then there's this form view, which is really cool.
Right.
Do you have an example of the Kanban? Because I haven't actually looked at this.
Um, yeah, let's check products.
Ah, here we
Yeah,
go.
there it is.
Here's the Kanban. So this is sort of Trello-ish, right? Like, oh, it sure is. Look at that. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
and so as you drag across the states, the
oh
state
shit.
value on that record changes to reflect it, right? So again,
Oh,
this is we're only changing the presentation of that data and how you interact with it.
right.
I don't like
Yeah.
Kanban boards. I prefer to have a grid where I group by state, and then manually change the state
And
value. So
when you say group by state, you're talking about something like this.
yeah, so we can try it. So if you click back on roadmap prioritization and go to add a new view down there at the bottom and click grid.
Okay.
I'm going to create a new grid view. We can name it Geo's view.
Okay.
Okay. And then we can go to group up there on the top bar. Nice. And then we can pick fields to group by. So I want to group by feature status.
Okay.
And you can choose how you want to sort it first to last. Up to you. But here it is, right? So I can just scroll through and see where everything is. I like to keep all of my views
Mm.
collapsed, and then just jump into the one that's most important to me. But again, so this is
Cool.
right. So this is my view. This is optimized to how I work, not necessarily optimized to how Jason works.
And now, so a question for this: what, like, when you create this, does everybody on the? This is a question that I've had because I think we ran into this at Gatsby because we use Airtable for a couple things.
Yeah.
When I'm in here, and so I've just changed this and moved it over to this view. Will everybody else coming into this base be looking at this view when they open it? And then, like, if they
Uh,
change it, it changes my view.
it depends. When you first load a base, it'll load to whoever's last view was open.
Uh huh.
But you can change the view at the same time that somebody else and view it differently. It's only on that first entry where you may get pulled into someone else's view.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So,
And you can make views private if you want. By default, they're visible by everyone. But if we go back, you see the three people there.
mhm.
So you can click on that and make it a locked view or a personal view. So locked means that everyone can see it, but they can't make changes to it. And then personal
Got it.
means that it's similar. It just won't pop up in that list unless other people. There's a little button at the bottom that you can check to say show everyone's personal view. So those are ways to again sort of create a personalized view.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, we've got a question that's
Yeah.
been echoed about notifications that we can pull from Airtable to automatically trigger a new Gatsby build.
Yeah. So Airtable doesn't have webhooks today. That's another thing that we're working on. So as states change in Airtable, we don't necessarily send out to a. Let me take that a step back. Webhooks, right? You say ping me when something changes at this URL.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have that today. I have seen examples in the wild of people using tools with Gatsby and Airtable that as things in Airtable change, it can trigger a Gatsby build. But I'd have to look more at how those work.
I think so. Like Zapier, I think has a way to do that. Like if we go here, we might be able to do a webhook.
Yeah, so you can use. So we do have an integration with Zapier that allows you to manage some of this, but it is another tool that you have to go set up, which is why I normally save that as a last resort.
Sure. Yeah. I mean this like somebody saying um, in the chat that like this is kind of a top priority for using it with the Jamstack, and I would agree
Mhm.
with that. I think it's kind of one of the things that is really powerful with a lot of headless CMSs is the
Oh
webhook
yeah.
configuration. So are you saying is that in beta or is that in planning?
It's in planning at this time.
Okay.
So it's something the team's working on, but we don't have an active beta for it.
Okay.
So rich text is beta. People are testing it. Webhooks, we're just trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about what that means for the API.
Mm-hmm.
What events do we want to surface,
Mm-hmm.
and how do we effectively manage those? So it's taking a little bit more thought right now.
Okay. And so the way that we would ultimately have to solve this for ourselves, like if this was what we wanted to do, we could look at, I guess, putting like there are websites that do a cron job where you would be able to do something like pull the table and
Hmm.
and then hash the content of the table and then compare that to the last hash, and if they were different, you could fire off a webhook, which is I imagine what Zapier's doing. But if you wanted to set up your own like serverless instance, you could totally do that.
Right.
I'm saying this in response to a question about using serverless functions. Um, and so if you were to do that, like that would totally work. Um, it's going to be manual. You're going to be managing it yourself. I think it would like there are requests that are like they should just put everything aside and do webhooks now.
Yeah. Uh,
I mean, I would not be upset about that, honestly.
yeah. I think webhooks will be a really exciting time once we get that launched,
Hmm.
because I think it opens up a ton of use cases, not just triggering builds, right? The
Right.
ability to capture that webhook and then ping other downstream systems and let them know that something changed in Airtable. Having webhooks stem out of Airtable, I think is really important for users who want to make Airtable their central source of truth for everything and have
Hmm.
everything drive out of Airtable. So it's definitely top of mind. Again,
Sure.
we're just trying to make sure that we're building it in a way that's thoughtful and scalable and really built for the long term.
Totally. That totally makes sense. Cool. So, with that being said, we are running a little short on time, and I haven't had a chance to ask you about blocks at all. And so, I want to know what these are because it seems like something that it's worth looking at.
Yeah, so blocks are an extension of the presentation layer within Airtable. So it is
Okay.
a paid feature, but you can access it now because you're on a free 2-week trial since you just
Okay.
created a new account. Everything else that we've seen today is free, so you can sign up for Airtable and start using that sort of core functionality that we just showed right
Okay.
off the bat.
And so everything that we've done thus far is something that you do not have to pay to use.
Correct.
Um, oh, that's kind of a nice view. I just clicked a button and
Oh, the gallery view? Yeah, the
yeah,
cards. I
that
enjoyed the cards quite a bit.
that seems like a good one for like companies, for example.
Right.
So this is cool. All right, so with a block though, if assuming that we are willing to pay for an Airtable account, um, I get this is your chance. Sell us on why blocks are good enough to make them worth paying for.
Yeah, so blocks again, they're just adding additional capabilities and logic on top of the data in your base.
Okay.
So if you click on add a block, you can add as many blocks as you want,
Okay.
but there are helpful tools within blocks. Some of them will actually manipulate the data. So like the dedupe block, we see oftentimes that users accidentally duplicate information,
Okay.
and they've been doing it for months and they want to be able to go through and clean. So the dedupe block helps with that. The chart block allows you to render bar charts, graphs, pie charts. Really important for project tracking. How many tasks do I have in a certain status? Page designer, if we want to click on that, one's kind of fun. Um, this allows you to basically build templates in Airtable, and then on each record, it will pull the data out of that record and render it in that template. So as you can
Oh, so
imagine, for like
this
social media posts,
right.
uh,
Wait,
Yeah.
social media posts? What do you mean social media posts?
So we have some teams that will manage their marketing calendars in Airtable. So they're planning
Okay.
all of their posts on a number of different platforms. Most of those you can decompose a lot of those posts into images and text.
Hmm.
And so using the page designer block, what they can do is they can template what they want those posts to look like. And
Okay.
then the page designer for each record in their base will take an image and the image and text that they want and lay it out in accordance with the template that they built.
Hmm.
You can also use it to generate invoices, right? Invoices are almost always the same, but the data elements in them are going to be different
And
and
now,
specific to a record.
yeah, and so if I build this, like if I add this
Mm-hmm.
block for an invoice, is this now a public URL? Like I can send this page to someone?
You can make it public if you want.
So like I guess the reason I'm asking for this is like if I were to use this and let's say I had clients and I hooked up like the
Mm-hmm.
invoice data, could I also hook that up to like a payment button for Stripe or something and send somebody a link from Airtable to say, here's your invoice, click this button to pay it?
Um, Potentially, it just depends on how you're creating the links to Stripe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you'd have to figure out that like how to get template data into that Stripe link.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
But
that's
yes, in theory, and what eventually I think what we'll be able to do is have something more akin to like a Stripe block, right, where that
okay.
Stripe functionality is natively embedded within Airtable, and gives you that ability to add to generate that dynamic payment link and be able to send that to someone.
Hmm.
So we have integrations. So Send SMS integrates with Twilio. So if you're managing an event and you have all of the attendees for that event, you have their phone numbers, and you want to be able to
Mm.
text them a message on the day of the event, you can use the Send SMS block to send that information out to them. So that's the power of blocks. Is it's going to right now with Airtable, what you're looking at is it's awesome to be able to modify that presentation layer, be
Hmm.
able to again optimize it specifically for what you want to do. What blocks allow you to do is take that a step further and actually take actions on that data, programmatic actions on that data, without needing to write or develop any software yourself.
Cool. Yeah, so this looks pretty powerful. I feel like this is the sort of thing that you start looking into when you've got like a team.
Right,
When you as the developer are either accessing or feeding data to Airtable, and then you've got someone who needs to like manage or interact with that data in a non-developery way. This would give
right.
you the ability to kind of show it off. Um,
Yeah,
that's
exactly. We have teams that use it, again, for project management. It's become super powerful to have those blocks and be able to show, this is how many tasks we had over time, and this is how many are completed or in flight. Having that level of uh, granularity into your data is extremely
mm,
important. That's what blocks provide. The map block's also a lot of fun. There's an example. You can go to airtable.com/universe to get it's sort of our collection of um, client and it's just a collection of templates that people opt to share with the world. And so you can copy those templates. One interesting one, and I don't have the link for it, but someone uses Airtable to track cattle on their farm because they're getting GPS data. Ooh, it may not be in universe. Oh, there it is. I think it's Ultrascan.
scanning cows. This is
Yeah. So there,
everything that I've ever wanted to see. Oh
right. It's
no.
oh, I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But it's one of those wild examples of what people are using Airtable for. And because they're tagging all of that GPS data for where their cows are, they can use the map block to render location markers for those groups.
This is pretty cool. Like I did not know that universe existed, so this is pretty fun. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I like
it's
this a lot.
yeah. Again, like Airtable's more when I'm working with clients, they oftentimes get a little stuck. They're like, I want a project tracker. How does Airtable do that? The answer is it does it however you want it to. So I think Universe is a really great way of showcasing that. If you typed in Project Tracker, you'd get 15 to 20 different ways that people have managed projects within Airtable,
Mm-hmm.
or three.
Well,
But
I think I used very specific
it's
terminology.
all good. And so I think there's so many different ways to manage that data
Mm-hmm.
within Airtable. And again, it's meant to be specific and optimized to your workflows, because how you want to
Totally.
manage your project is going to be very different than how someone else does.
Well, cool. So, I mean, we are kind of coming up on the end of it. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think is important to cover?
Um, I do like the form view. If we want to go back to that, form view is kind of fun. So
Okay,
what?
so let's do this. Let's say we want to add a new thing, and I want to do a form view.
Mhm.
Um,
So forms allow you to, well, to create a form. Not the best sentence I've ever said, but um, it's going to allow you to insert new records into your Airtable base. So that can be really helpful when you're sharing with a team. So like Airtable uses forms for bug and issue tracking. So customer comes to us with a bug, we submit it into an Airtable form, and then the bug is tracked and managed through its life cycle within Airtable after that point in time. So yeah, so you can use this to submit a new role. You can also use it to create like a contact form. So if you want someone to be able to say, hey, give me a call, I want to talk about setting up a live stream with Jason, you could create a form and have those funnel into an Airtable base where you manage, again, those contact forms through their life cycle.
yeah. So, all right. So I just did that, filled out the
There it
form,
is.
and it's now in the database. So this is like if we were looking for something along the lines of like actually I have an example of this. Gatsby has a an events page. Wait, where is it? Contributing events, I think. Yeah. And so we have this list of upcoming community run events about like Gatsby stuff. So this is a great place to go
Right.
and look to see what the Gatsby community is up to. But if you want to submit your event, we have an Airtable form for that. And
Oh,
so
look at you.
you're able to go in and put in your information and request support. And so this is like if you're doing a Gatsby talk at your local meetup, you want some stickers to give away, whatever that is, you can go request that here. And this gets put into an Airtable form that notifies our marketing team. And then the marketing team goes in and in Airtable, they can like select approved or not. And once they approve it, it will go, it doesn't trigger a build, but the next time the Gatsby site rebuilds, which in our case is multiple times a day, it will pull all the new approved events and rebuild that events page. So these are all
Right.
the approved events that we have.
Right. And under the hood, you're likely using the GraphQL query to say only pull approved events.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a common workflow that we see people leveraging Airtable for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a very powerful way to do it. We also did some cool stuff with that. If you're interested, this is all open source code. You can find the events page in the Gatsby.js org. Gatsby.js, Gatsby here. It's going to be in this page, www, which is our website, and it's somewhere in. Oh boy, can I do this? Let's see, components, events.
This is
Here we
gonna be
go.
impressive. Ooh,
This
look at you
is
go.
yeah. This is how we load it, and so there is a query here that allows us to use community events. I wrote this is a React hook, everyone. Um, so I wrote a React hook to just use the community events, and this pulls out like the name, organizer, and then it has to be approved for posting on the event page, and
Right.
that's kind of how we check that. But yeah, so this is a really powerful way to kind of deal with that data. It makes it really easy for us to manage that data. And let's see, I'll just link to this in case anyone is interested. And then that I think brings us to the end of our time. So, Gio, where should people find you?
We have a couple different contact forms on our website. Again, Airtable is free to use, so if you want to hop in and start playing around with it, feel free. And then if you go to airtable.com/pricing, there's a couple different ways to contact our team if you want to talk about a larger plan for your business. That goes
Okay.
to my lovely sales team, and then they'll loop me in as appropriate.
Okay. And what if somebody wants to specifically follow you around?
Oh, if you specifically want to follow me around, I'm available on run most of my stuff out of LinkedIn. Giovanni Briggs. It's the photo of me slightly frowning, and then also
I'm
on
gonna have to
Twitter
search.
at
Oh God. Oh
the
God.
first pan.
LinkedIn.
Was the first search result on that Giovanni Briggs
Oh, come
death?
on.
Oh, well, there you can find me on there. There's not too many
Let me
of us.
just let me. I don't. I'm not logged into LinkedIn on this thing, but I think that should work.
No
Yeah,
worries.
posted it in the chat. And then sorry, you said LinkedIn, and what was the other one?
And then I'm on Twitter as kind of a silent observer of the Twitter universe at
What is it?
the first pancake with a one. Yeah, because
Okay. All right.
somebody beat me to it.
What's the story?
All right. Um, so I'm the eldest of three, and back in my youthful teenage years, my parents mandated Sunday brunch. We could go do whatever we wanted during the week, but Sunday brunch was sacred time. We all had to show up. My mom would make enough food to feed a small village, and I
Okay.
would sit in the kitchen and just sort of, eat. I would have pre-breakfast basically, and uh, I was one of these brunches one day. She's making pancakes. The first batch comes out, a little burned, not her best work. She hands them over to me and says, "You know, you are my first pancake. The first ones never come out quite right." And it like said that, turned around and went back to cooking. I don't think we've discussed it since. So I have embraced that. I am the first pancake. Um, so yeah, so that is the
That's
story behind the name.
that is stone cold.
Oh God, it was savage. Just imagine, like, again, useful teenage. I can take on the world. Getting told that I was the first pancake and I didn't come out quite right. Like it was
I assume this
it
is
was a trying time.
this started your spiral into listening to like the Smiths and the Cure and wearing like the black eyeliner and
I never got into the black eyeliner, but it was hood up, not really talking to anyone. I felt like yes, I was my
that's
place in the world had been shattered.
brutal. Mama Briggs in for the kill. All right,
Yep.
so Gio, this was so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on and teaching us about Airtable today. I've posted all of your links into the chat, and thank you everyone for watching. Make sure that you head over to the Twitch channel and subscribe so that you are able to see upcoming events. You can just hit that follow button right up at the top, and then if you click over to events, you can see we've got a whole sorts of good stuff coming up soon. We're going to do Kendigo Cloud next week with Andre. We're going to build a Gatsby podcast theme with Henry Zhu from Babbel, which I'm super excited about. We're going to learn more about Hasura. We've had Vlad on the stream before, but it's always a blast having him around. We'll see where he's broadcasting from this time. Last time it was the International Space Station. And all sorts of good things coming up. So please hit that follow button, and we will see you next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Jason.